Hey Bill, it's nice talking. I'd like to thank ProBlack 43 for introducing me to this story. This is from BBC News. Genetic impact of African slave trade revealed in DNA study. A major DNA study has shed new light on the fate of millions of Africans who were traded as slaves to the Americas between the 16th and 19th century. More than 50,000 people took part in the study, which was able to identify more details of the genetic impact the trade has had on present-day populations in the Americas. It lays bare the consequences of rape, maltreatment, disease, and racism. More than 12.5 million Africans were traded between 1515 and the mid-19th century. Some 2 million of the enslaved men, women, and children died en route to the Americas. The DNA study was led by consumer genetics company 23andMe and included 30,000 people of African ancestry on both sides of the Atlantic. The findings were published in the American Journal of Human Genetics. Stephen Micheletti, a population geneticist at 23andMe, told AFP news agency the aim was to compare the genetic results with the manifests of slave ships to see how they agreed and how they disagreed. While much of their findings agreed with the historical documentations about where people were taken from in Africa and where they were slaved in the Americas, in some cases we see that they disagree quite strikingly, he added. The study found that in line with the major slave route, most Americans of African descent have roots in territories now located in Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo. I wonder what all these indigenous people will start trying to say with this news. Well, what was surprising was the overrepresentation of Nigerian ancestry in the US and Latin America when compared to the recorded number of enslaved people from that region. Researchers say that could be explained by the intercolonial trade that occurred between 1619 and 1807. They believe enslaved Nigerians were transported from British Caribbean to other areas, presumably to maintain the slave economy as transatlantic slave trading was increasingly prohibited. Likewise, the researchers were surprised to find an underrepresentation from Senegal and the Gambia, one of the first regions where slaves were deported. Researchers put this down to two grim factors. Many were sent to work in rice plantations where malaria and other dangerous conditions were rampant, and in later years where large numbers of children were sent, many of whom did not survive the crossing. In another gruesome discovery, the study found that the treatment of enslaved women across the Americas had an impact on the modern gene pool. Researchers said the strong bias towards African female contributions in the gene pool, even though the majority of slaves were female, could be attributed to the rape of enslaved African women by slave owners and other sexual exploitation. In Latin America, up to 17 African women for every African man contributed to the gene pool. Researchers put this down in part to a policy of branqueamento, racial whitening, in a number of countries, which actively encouraged the immigration of European men with the intention to dilute African ancestry for reproduction. Although the bias in British colonized America was just 2 African women to 1 African man, it was no less exploitative. The study highlighted the practice of coercing enslaving people to have children as a means of maintaining enslaved workforce. Nearing the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade, in the US, women were often promised freedom in return for reproducing, and racist policies opposed the mixing of different races, researchers note. So please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I'll leave this article in the description. If you'd like to support this channel, leave my GoFundMe there as well. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, I'll leave that there as well. Peace.